To Each a Tempo, an Ace Attorney and Elite Beat Agents fanfiction. Chapter 12.
You know, Cherry's really not so bad until you knock over her bechamel sauce.
That certainly explained the commotion Phoenix heard while ascending the stairs about
how ham-hockin' much of a pain it is cleaning up bechamel.
He gave Maya a bemused glance and opened the orchard's bell-jingling door for the two of them.
Did you get any clues from her?
Other than new recipes and how to ruin them.
She talked about the cost percentage on Fiesta tarts, whatever that means, and she mentioned a regular customer who eats there every day. And she showed me how to make a pretty swirl of sauce on a plate, Nick, right before she started yelling.
None of that had anything to do with the late Morna Beasley, unfortunately. Phoenix and Maya turned at the corner, following the orchard's brick wall into cool shade. Their sand-scuffing footsteps rattled down the alley.
The cost percentages make sense. I've found records of most of Miss LaFlamme's payments through the orchard. Utilities, taxes, payroll.
Phoenix's brows lifted as he sidled around fallen police tape.
So, should we be...
I'm not altering or copying a thing, Phoenix. No harm done. But you might be interested to know that LaFlamme is making minimum payments on her bills. She hasn't paid 1 cent more than necessary for as long as the restaurant's been open.
She's in debt?
Maya looked suddenly to Phoenix, wide-eyed, fingers lifting to her chin. A pang of sympathy struck him, the same as every time Maya gave him that look.
I can't confirm that without seeing the business's savings, and perhaps LaFlamme's own finances. But if I had to guess, LaFlamme is probably so... tense, because she's barely keeping her head above water.
So, I guess Cherry has a good reason to worry about the orchard.
And to hate anyone who slandered it.
That's terrible. The food's really good.
Foxx, you heard Cherry talking about the bridge group, didn't you? Can you find any records on them?
You're wondering if Miss Beasley was part of the group.
A few keystrokes, and she paused like a pensive frown.
It's unlikely that an elderly ladies' social group would have records in any database I can access, but I'm working on it.
If she turned something up, it could be just the break their case needed. A motive, a reason to want an old lady dead.
In the meantime, Phoenix, please meet with your contact. He's quite the nuisance when he's bored.
Phoenix looked around at the alley walls stretching away and behind, broken on one side by the orchard's small, filthy window, then back to the board fence in front of them.
All right, we'll find him.
Unless their agent contact was a master of camouflage, lurking in the trash bags and flattened cardboard, he had to be on the other side of the fence. And Maya was a step ahead of Phoenix, opening the board door with a long, groaning creak.
No lock?
Phoenix eyed the metal loop on the door's frame. It was the type meant to hook a padlock onto.
It was open.
Pointing to the dangling brass lock on the door's handle, and looking entirely too pleased about it, Maya bounced past Phoenix.
Oh, I hear something. Mr. Agent, Mystic Maya here.
Now that she mentioned it, a melody tugged low at Phoenix's awareness, like someone humming barely loud enough to be heard. He combed gaze over the alley, the brick and gritty ground, and a battered metal door that must have led to the orchard.
Hey, gang.
The voice came from a corner Phoenix hadn't thought to look in. Behind jumbled milk crates, a figure stood, perfectly matched to the shadows. He grinned, teeth brilliant against his dark skin.
Mr. Wright, Miss Faye, Agent Spin here.
He showed his badge, a muted flash of gold.
Just in time. I was nearly done with my serenade. She's a 20th century fox.
I'm nearly sick of hearing it.
Spin came a leisurely step closer, shrugging and adjusting his large DJ's headphones.
She's so vain. She thinks that song is about her.
Phoenix could nearly hear Fox's eye roll.
So, you have some information for us, right?
Sure do. All right, so here's the deal.
Spin shifted his weight to 1 foot, fishing inside his suit jacket.
The others are keeping an eye on the police in Edgeworth. I'm just passing along this here.
The item in question crackled free of Spin's pocket. It was a plastic bag with a sad, broken piece of electronic casing inside of it.
We figure it's a chunk of the security camera.
The security camera?
Spin pointed past Phoenix and Maya, at the wall above. A small security camera clung there, staring down at the unlocked gateway, its cables huddled where the wall and fence formed a corner. Bare-tipped wires poked from the ground-level control box, through a panel left carelessly open. Phoenix took the broken camera piece from Spin. Its shredded wires practically screamed suspicious activity.
The police know about that security camera. Guess they asked the restaurant owner about it. But here's the good part. We found the broken chunk on the side of the fence door. And the whole time the police investigation was going on, the door was locked. They didn't pay much attention back there. Figured it didn't have anything to do with Jay because he didn't get through the door.
So there was traffic through this alley. Recent traffic. From someone with a key. That someone might know more about the damaged camera.
Do you know who unlocked the door?
It was open when I got here. I can't tell you why.
If the person who passed through here had a key for the locked gate, they must have come back here a lot. What about Cherry? Does she have a reason to pass this way?
All I can tell you is that nobody in that building right now is yelling for help. Maybe Foxx can pull up the blueprints or something.
The alley door behind the gate leads to the second floor of the orchard, according to the original schematics. There have been multiple contracts and renovations in the building since then, some for sizable sums of money, but there are no business records other than the orchards. That second floor must be private property, Phoenix. Maybe someone's residence.
Nick, I have an idea. I'm going to talk to Cherry for a minute.
Which was like going to poke a mountain lion with a sharp stick for a minute.
Why?
Well, the security camera is hers, right? And we know she came back here recently, so I thought she might tell me about this broken piece.
They didn't know for sure that Cherry had come to the alley recently. But Cherry definitely knew more than she was willing to tell. And she liked Maya better than Phoenix, or at least glared at her less. Phoenix frowned thoughtfully. He fished in his pocket for the Magatama.
Here, take this, Maya. It'll show you if Cherry is hiding something from you.
It was like Maya was seeing her family's treasure for the first time, eyes lighting up before she took it.
Really? Neat. I'll be right back. Don't leave without me.
She trotted off, sandals scuffing away down the alley. And then Phoenix was left with Spin, who grinned far too knowingly.
What?
I thought there was some sinking going on in there.
Folding his arm, tapping two fingers to an imagined beat, Spin shifted his weight to one leg.
No wonder you got the mission, Mr. Wright. Secret agent man.
Sinking?
More like Phoenix was living in a very, very mad world. And then came a familiar chirp of a voice.
Hey, Spin. Nick, do you guys copy?
Phoenix's hand flew to his earpiece.
Missy?
I'm in your comlink, hacking your signals.
Actually, it was just easier to patch her in than to relay everything.
Did you just call to say you want me to come back home?
I can't seem to get you off my mind. Actually, the pitch modding's done on that audio feed more, Scott. Nick, a woman phoned Prosecutor Edgeworth, and it sounded like she's been really driving him nuts lately.
For a deeply pitying moment, Phoenix recalled Edgeworth's office full of not-so-secret admirers' gifts. Getting attention could be a bad thing indeed.
Do you know who the caller was?
Turns out it was Cherry LaFlamme. She called to yell about how she has vital information on the case, and she'd be on Edgeworth like white on rice until he called her as his witness.
What? She told me she didn't see anything.
Guess you'll have to do what you do best, Mr. Wright.
He presumably eyed Phoenix behind his shades.
She'll be on the stand, Nick.
He knew the look Missy was giving him now. Wide-eyed adoration, maybe with fists balled with determination.
You could handle anybody on the stand. I've seen you make stubborn people spill. And Miss LaFlamme has something to hide, I just know it.
If nothing else, Phoenix could back her into a corner in the courtroom. Those locks would open one way or another. Maya came scuff-trotting back not long afterward.
So, did Cherry tell you anything?
Dropping the Magatama back into Phoenix's grasp, it was gently warm. From hands or magic or maybe both, Maya paused.
No, but I learned some new words.
Phoenix had no words. He rubbed his forehead.
Pushing Cherry isn't going to work. She's just getting defensive. We need to wait until we have a better idea of what's going on here, before we can force anybody to talk.
Some people wait a lifetime for a moment like this.
Phoenix, I've got confirmation. LaFlamme and Dempster have no natural music sense, and they've never shown awareness of agent presence or assistance. Treat them like you treat any other witness.
Easy to say, and trickier to do. Phoenix muttered agreement anyway. They said goodbye to Spin and were told to
keep on rocking in the free world.
Missy signed off so that the comlink transmitted nothing but Fox's reliable quiet. After such a long day, the rumbled dinginess of the city bus was almost familiar enough to be a comfort.
These are pretty gross, Nick.
He looked to Maya, who held Cherry's clump of side rags in her lap to pick through them.
Well, they won't be any use to us if they are freshly washed.
What had Barley been talking about? Beef grease and red pepper, something or another?
See anything you recognize?
I think this is the same sauce I spilled.
Maya picked at a spot of crusty off-white.
And this black stuff is stove grease. Or maybe pot grease. Or pan grease? Where does grease come from anyway?
Did they really want to know?
And here's some green stuff.
Maya squinted at the towels.
What kind of food is this color?
You mean broccoli?
No, this isn't broccoli green or pea green. It's not even mint frosting green.
Phoenix decided to take Maya's expert word on the subject.
Oh, well, I don't know then.
He leaned over for a better look at the green in question. A thin, smeared line hidden momentarily as Maya's thumb passed over it. Spinach, maybe? Was there even such a thing as spinach sauce?
Hey, why don't we get Detective Gumshoe to check it out for us? I bet the lab could tell us about every speck of food on these rags.
It figured that they thought of that 5 bus stops too late. Phoenix reached up for the cord. The police station was the same as usual. Rows of oddly neat desks, an occasional officer bustling by, the police chief grumbling as he started a new solitaire game. Detective Gumshoe hunched over his desk, deeply concentrating for a change. His ratty coat hung on the back of his chair, and his shirt sleeves were rolled past his elbows. Maybe that was the Gumshoe's equivalent of taking off the kid gloves.
The thing with these frequency detectors,
So that's what the mangled electronic innards in front of him were.
is that they're not really hard to make, but they're a lot more sensitive than you'd think, pal. It takes just one little bent what's-it to throw the whole thing off.
What's it?
Maya picked up a pair of pliers and hopefully didn't have plans for them.
Is that the technical word, Detective?
He looked up at her, hurt and puppy dog confusion on his face.
Hey, I don't have an electronical degree or anything.
It didn't sound like he had an English degree either.
I just know how to put things together so they work. I knew those old radios would come in handy for something. Didn't Mr. Wright tell you, Maya? This frequency detector helped us uncover Mad on Guard.
The lemon-colored casing pieces did look awfully familiar. Watching Gumshoe adjust the fine wiring, the screwdriver comically tiny between his fingers and his tongue studiously between his lips, was faintly like watching Foxx work. Very faintly. If Phoenix squinted.
That detector really came in handy. And speaking of useful...
You want information, don't you, pal? Well, I can't tell you anything about the Beasley case. Mr. Edgeworth is keeping a tight lid on it since that news report about the grandma murderer.
Well, could you tell us about Sherry LaFlamme then?
Chef LaFlamme? She's been calling Mr. Edgeworth, actually. She says she saw the killer running from Foster Park, and she's dead set on testifying about it. She wouldn't let me set foot in her kitchen, and she said she was too busy for questioning. And she doesn't like people tripping over her furniture.
Gumshoe sheepishly scratched his head.
She's kinda grouchy, pal. But Chef LaFlamme did give a statement and security records, and she let us investigate in her restaurant's alley.
The microphone. Phoenix, he might have found it.
They still lacked that piece of the puzzle, didn't they? Watching Maya bend scrap copper wires into animal shapes, that was actually a pretty good kangaroo. Phoenix tapped his chin.
Did you find anything else linking Mr. Lowe to the Foster Park trail other than the footprints?
Phoenix's mind still raced. How might a person lose a microphone accidentally and unremarkably, dropping their, bag of recording equipment? Stewart was supposed to be a handyman and an errand runner, not a rock star. How did a microphone make any sense at all? Gumshoe frowned, puzzled, and he opened a filing drawer to dig inside.
Actually, there's one thing we can't make heads or tails of. You're good at this kind of thing, pal. I'm not supposed to show you, but 3 heads are better than 1.
Even if one's a head of cabbage.
I thought you hated cabbage.
She stared thoughtfully into the air.
I don't hate it. We just agree to disagree.
Funny how Maya found time for civil negotiations while vacuuming down her food. Gumshoe set an evidence bag down on the desk with a heavy clatter.
We found this by the Foster Park trail, pal. Off to one side, like somebody dropped it.
Or threw it, because he couldn't be caught with it. Phoenix stifled his relief and put on his best faintly surprised face.
Is this a karaoke microphone?
Yeah, you got it. But the weird part is it's not from the wedding. We checked with Mr. Vanderspiegel. It's not the same model as his equipment. And it's covered with your client's fingerprints, Mr. Wright. Really covered. The lab had a hard time finding clear handprints, but Mr. Edgeworth insisted.
Handprints? To figure out what kind of grip the microphone was held in, right?
There was only one reason Edgeworth would want to know that.
Yep. The mark on Miss Beasley's head shows something rounded and about the size of that microphone's mouthpiece. But we didn't find any blood or hair or anything from Miss Beasley on it.
Focus on the outsides of things. Focus on fingerprints and residues.
So just Mr. Lowe's handprints.
The lab figures they're all regular microphone holding prints. If you were hitting somebody with it, you'd hold it the other way around and in a hard fist. Why would your guy have a microphone anyway, pal?
He just had to ask, didn't he? One hand crept to the back of Phoenix's neck.
Well, he was doing all kinds of things that day.
A singing job? In a lounge, maybe? Or a bar?
Sure, that would work. Phoenix just had to stop showing nerves, let a thoughtful look wander over his face, and...
I think he was going to try out at some lounges. You know, bars for entertainment sort of jobs.
It was weak, like impromptu excuses always were, but Gumshoe's brows worked as he mulled it over.
He sings too? Pretty talented guy.
Gumshoe stared. The most awkward silence in the world passed them by. Maya set a wire cow on the desk with a fine click.
But anyway, it doesn't look like Mr. Lowe whacked anybody with this. That's what Mr. Edgeworth really wanted to find out.
He glanced over his shoulder.
Look, I don't know how, but I've just got a gut feeling that microphone's important, pal. If anybody can figure out a piece of evidence, it's you.
Maya looked up from arranging her menagerie.
Actually, we've got some evidence only you can figure out. It's practically a trade.
Gumshoe frowned at the neat row of animals.
I'll help you, just quit making giraffes out of my who's-its.
I thought they were what's-its.
Phoenix lifted his briefcase onto the desk and didn't offer to call them thingies.
Look, can we just give you the evidence already?
With the side rags stuffed into evidence bags and Gumshoe's assurance that the lab knew every shade of green there was, Phoenix and Maya left the police department.
If you've got time, Phoenix, would you visit Jay in detention?
Visit Jay?
Maya nodded eagerly, and then her attention went to waving down a passing taxi.
Sure.
He glanced to his watch. They had an hour left before the detention center guards would give him a hard time.
Is there something we need to find out?
Not especially, no. I'm not convinced that the murder wasn't part of an attack against the agency, but Jay insists that the target he followed was in real need. That's all the help he can give us for the time being. Honestly, I'd like to check in. We're still keeping transmission contact with Jay to a bare minimum while he's in police custody, but we need to know how he's holding up.
Because that was what teams did. They looked out for each other. Phoenix nodded, watching the taxi glide up to the curb.
We'll be right there.
Another ride in a ubiquitous cab, and Phoenix and Maya sat in the detention center once more, looking idly around at the camera and guard and stark walls. Stewart left the guards and took his seat, placing the bagged agent's shoes in front of him.
Am I ever glad to see you guys?
He managed a wry smile.
It's boring in the can, you know?
Stewart glanced away, raking a hand through his hair.
Guess they got tired of hearing I'm not talking without my lawyer present. Time's been pretty long after that.
A smile suddenly brightened him.
But the commander dropped a line.
I thought you weren't getting transmissions here in detention.
I didn't think so either, but then I noticed infra and sure enough it's these.
He lifted the shoes, grinning.
The commander transmitted slow. Real slow, so the beats were spread out, and if anyone noticed one, they wouldn't know it's Morse, right? It took a couple hours for him to tell me to keep up the beat, Agent. We're all behind ya.
Maya clapped her hands together, shining with delight.
Oh, that's so nice of him.
It's just what we do.
At that moment, he looked nearly at ease.
Well, it's good to know that you're all right.
Foxx had to be listening. She said nothing. Her words nagged in the back of Phoenix's mind. He took a breath and decided.
Mr. Lowe, when you chased that target into the alley, you said they were scared, right? Possibly injured?
Agent's dignity settled over him in an instant.
Yeah, there was so much panic and just feelings. It was like I was right there with him. It was like sticking my hand in hot coals and knowing it hurt.
He looked away. He chewed his lip.
I've been thinking about that a lot. I'm sure it was real. I wish I could have helped.
Phoenix could imagine it now, in a rough, sketched way. Quick pounding adrenaline from running, a gut feeling that someone was in need, extra senses coloring the world, and something unexplainable urging, pulling. He nodded.
We've got some leads on the real killer. We'll get to the bottom of this, and...
Phoenix patted his briefcase.
Your microphone is in safe hands.
Oh, good. That's a relief.
Stewart's grin crept back, and he scratched his head.
Losing secret agent gear is pretty bad.
That was implied, yes.
Would it be alright if I held onto it? Edgeworth had the microphone before we did.
Stewart winced. Phoenix's sentiments exactly.
And the police department couldn't make a connection to the murder. They didn't look at anything more than your handprints. But just in case.
Yeah, sure, keep it. Just keep the switch off and the conductor frequency to 0. It's that little twisty at the bottom of the handle.
I just won't touch it. How's that?
Come on, Nick.
The look of impending doom shone in Maya's eyes.
You'd make a great agent. Sis said you dance to the radio like you mean it.
Hadn't Mia promised she wouldn't tell anyone about that?
Well, anyway, we'll work on the evidence we've got. The other agents found some clues on what Edgeworth is doing. We'll be better off in court tomorrow than we were today.
We'll blow this case wide open tomorrow, so rest easy, alright?
Stewart agreed, but they all knew it was easier said than done.
Tuicha Tempo was written by Pyrasaur. Ace Attorney and Elite Beat Agents are owned by Capcom and Inis, respectively. The narrator for this story is Genndy C.O.G. The voice of Phoenix Wright is Lastni. The voice of Maya Fey is Miki. The voice of Dick Gumshoe is Genndy C.O.G. The voice of Agent J is also Genndy C.O.G. The voice of Agent Spin is Cement City. The voice of Agent Missy is Airbricka. The voice of Agent Foxx is Galen Skibyak. The voice of Cherry LaFlamme is Katie Hiatt. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.